G'day. February marked a full year since I started sim racing with a proper setup. Goes to show how lazy I am about doing videos because it is currently the 28th of April as I film this. In terms of sim racing though, there's been some gaps due to things like moving house, changing jobs. Recently I've cut back on gaming altogether because I've been immersing myself in DMing for Dungeons and Dragons, so that takes a lot of research and a lot of writing and stuff and prep time on my end. But nonetheless, it has been such an insanely fun experience that if you take the time to learn and practice, can give you a genuine sense of accomplishment. November of 2021 was when I started dabbling a little with some F1 2021 and a little bit of Assetto Corsa Competizione. Back then, I was using a controller in F1 for a while before buying a Thrustmaster T300 RS GT wheel. For an entry-level wheel, it was quite good, but I have a video that I'll link where I talk about the differences between a cheap and expensive setup and the comfort of having a proper rig and a really good force feedback wheel, or even just having a decent stand to mount the wheel on was one of the biggest factors that made me want to upgrade, but you can hear my thoughts about that in that video. For now, I'd just like to take you through the games that I've played over the year and how good of an experience they've been, or in some cases bad. There will be some games that are missing from this list that I won't talk about, such as Gran Turismo 7 or the Forza series, but with GT7, I don't have a PlayStation compatible wheel, unfortunately, and with the case of Forza Horizon 5, that's the latest Forza game that's come out, it did not feel developed for a wheel at all. It was a fucking horrible experience the last time I played it. I'll quickly shout out rFactor 2 though for being really great so far, but I've literally only done time trials around the Nordschleife, so can't really speak on that anymore. Even if you ignore the useless sofas and unwanted supercars, the Codemasters F1 series is still more arcadey than simulation. Two of my mates were having a lot of fun with 2021 and convinced me to buy it. I enjoyed it with a controller and was further convinced to buy a wheel to play it, so it basically acted as my gateway to sim racing. They're decent enough games if you just want to fuck around with time trial or just play casually with friends, so long as the game wants to work. With public lobbies, it becomes a fucking mess because nobody has any racing etiquette, so you pretty much load into a public lobby. Maybe you complete a race without any issues, or at least minimal issues, but the common experience for me was I would have damage done to my car and just finish the race out of obligation, or I'd waste all the time loading in, doing my qualies, getting smashed into, and then having to quit to then go through all the process again, loading screens, blah, blah, blah. Maybe the only race I could find was in progress, so I had to wait for that to finish to then just repeat all those steps again and get fucking crashed into. Very frustrating. With regards to what I said about racing with friends, so long as it works, we recently set up a league, 5 of us. No AI, because racing with AI just created more issues than we wanted to deal with. And we ran into some very strange bugs. During a safety car, one friend said that my car was ramming into the back of him the whole time. So he had this weird desync going on, but on my screen, his car was just occasionally driving off the track. Another race, we had the safety car come out and the game couldn't figure out what the actual order was, so as a bunch of us were about 50 seconds behind, trying to catch up to the queue, the two boys in front figured, well, we're so far ahead, we're already behind the safety car, let's duck into the pits now for a free stop, and then just come back out behind the safety car, still in front of everyone. They went into the pits, they came out, and then it told them to overtake the safety car, and suddenly they were supposed to be at the back of the pack. Another race in Australia, a mate was completely taken out of the race because as he entered the pits, the game is supposed to take control of the car and actually drive the person through it automatically. But it freaked out, and then it tried to spawn him outside of the pits as if he had entered a no-go zone and just slammed him into the wall. So his entire front end just exploded and he was out of the race. And then you have issues like the weird physics where randomized spin seems to be introduced. It's very inconsistent physics-wise. The state of these games should be way more solid. They've had plenty of years to actually smooth out this foundation and release a complete package that doesn't play like shit. I wish I could at least do half of that. I'm really bad at rally games, but they are some of the most fun racing games I've ever played. Dirt Rally 2 and whatever rally game comes out to dethrone it are essentially the reason I even bothered buying an H pattern shifter and a handbrake. You're constantly making adjustments and always driving way faster than you probably should be on roads that are way too small for people to be driving on. And that's one of the most beautiful things about these rally games is you learn to really push the car right to the edge, and it never really feels like you're in control technically. Even when you start nailing a course, the car is still just sliding around all over the place, but you learn how to control these slides and you manage to find so much fun in how just out of control these cars are, especially when you're kicking up dust in a Group B car. Those things are fucking insane. I've not driven an IRL car through tracks like you do in this game, but the cars seem to behave how I imagine they would. The force feedback feels great, and the sound design is fantastic. Even graphically, the game is great. Environments look awesome, the cars are very detailed, and performance is excellent. Something I'm not a fan of is the rather chill music that's used throughout the game. I like the music itself, but as a massive fan of Dirt 2, I miss having a rock soundtrack to listen to whilst watching my replays. Assuming they actually look decent enough for a watch because, as I said before, I'm kind of bad at rally. The complete edition will sometimes go on sale for rather cheap, so be sure to snatch it up if you see it. Fuck! Yeah, I actually went out of my way and spent some time playing not one, but 2 truck simulators. I never would have imagined it to be something to be up my alley. I used to actually look at it in a quite a dismissive way, but when you sit down and play them, they're honestly quite enjoyable. It's a rather soothing experience at times, and there definitely is some challenge, especially when you have to park a trailer, and I swear to God, some of the places they want you to park, it's literally fucking impossible to park them normally, so thankfully there's a skip button if you get a bit too frustrated. Chuck some music on, and it's great to just cruise along. Fucking idiot! If you get fuckwits like that, just honk at them. Oh, fuck! Hopefully you have a good memory and set your keybinds up properly. If you're into trucks and have some favourite models, there's plenty to choose from, and in terms of progression, you can either just take on contractor jobs until you're able to run your own fleet, or just free roam and fuck around or go sightseeing. I just want to quickly highlight the negatives. The game runs like arse sometimes. The physics for the actual driving are not great, and whilst there are countless buttons for all sorts of actions related to driving, the replay system, the quick menu, etc., doesn't exactly feel intuitive. What this game does well though is its insanely detailed damage model that is currently unrivaled, and countless community content like modded cars, tracks, and entire scenarios to play with. If you rev the shit out of your car, the oil will start to overheat. If you hit a curb hard, the car will still run and function perfectly fine, but maybe the wheel alignment is a little off. But the beauty of this game is that as time goes on, the more the devs work on it, which they're always constantly working on it and releasing updates, the less and less it becomes just a crash simulator, and it's starting to become a full-blown simulator. They are improving the tire model, and they're constantly trying to improve the driving so that it feels closer to what a normal car would feel like, because at the moment, cars sort of tend to just slide out. It doesn't really feel like they're gripping to the road, even if you drive some of the supercars and such and take them onto a track. It never really feels like the cars are gripping like they're supposed to, or like they do in other races. There are so many working parts that are all calculated in real time, and a huge amount of "oh fuck!" Arguably the best racing game you can buy on PC. Not only are you usually able to buy the game and every single one of its DLCs for really fucking cheap when it's on sale, but it has a massive community of modders who are constantly introducing mods for better graphics, new cars, new tracks, you name it. Thankfully, there's even a custom-made launcher to circumvent the garbage menus that launched with the game. Although I personally haven't gotten into the game too much, I really enjoyed being able to race in an F1 2022 league that was run by some friends of a workmate. I only did the one race because I was sort of stuck playing other games at the time that had my attention, but it's a testament to the game that I'm able to boot it up nearly 10 years after release and have a better F1 experience than the official game from Codemasters. And as you can see in the footage, it's a good segue into another amazing aspect of sim racing: VR. I've played various VR titles like Boneworks, Pavlov, Half-Life Alyx, which is one of my all-time favorite gaming experiences, and Beat Saber, but sitting down and playing racing games is just something else entirely. It's like playing VR for the first time again with how transformative of an experience it is. Some games offer the ability to have the camera turn with your steering inputs to help with cornering a little, but doing it yourself in real time and being able to accurately judge distances is incredible. I've actually been able to improve my lap times in VR as well. The immersion factor of being in a seat with a direct drive system and actively looking around for opponents or looking over the bonnet to see better, I can't speak more highly about it. So far, the games I've had a great time with in VR are Euro Truck Simulator. Yes, you're able to actually play it in VR, though I didn't tinker with the settings too much, but it seems to run well enough. Assetto Corsa, like I mentioned, is brilliant. No performance hiccups or anything strange like that. Dirt Rally 2 becomes even better in VR. And another game that runs really well in VR and transforms the overall experience is, of course, iRacing.
Deja vu, I've just been in this place before. Higher on the street, and I know it's my time to go. Going new, and the search is a mystery. Standing on my feet, it's so hard when I try to be me. Whoa, deja vu, I've just been in this time before.
I love that highlight. That's me overtaking someone for first place on the final turn of the final lap of the race. iRacing is a little controversial depending on who you talk to about it due to its subscription model and the fact there is no free-to-play option to at least offer a couple of basic racing options, but if you want a real online progression with the largest roster of cars, this is really all there is. I started in the little MX-5s, worked my way up to racing the GT4s, raced in the GT3 Ferrari for the Ferrari Cup, and most recently achieved a C-Class rating so I can now race in the V8 supercars. But if road circuits aren't your thing, you have dirt oval, road oval, and then dirt circuits. There are a lot of options if you're willing to fork out the money for it, and it can be very expensive if you plan to drive a large collection of cars. And then on top of that, depending on the series you want to race, you might also have to buy the track. So it's definitely worth knowing that before venturing into. The game might not be the most impressive to look at, but driving feels excellent, and 9 times out of 10, the netcode does a pretty great job of allowing closed-door racing to occur. When an MX-5 is more fun to throw around a track than an F1 car in the officially licensed game, sorry Codemasters for bashing your game, but, well, brought it on yourself. You know you've got yourself a good set of driving physics. I found this game to be an excellent learning experience for what constitutes good racing etiquette, and it's also been really good at making me review my own mishaps and looking at incidents with a more critical eye to see if an incident was avoidable or not, and if I had a hand in causing it. And whether or not I did doesn't really matter, because the idea is that anything that does happen on the track, you need to watch and learn what could be done better. Maybe something wasn't your fault entirely, but maybe you could have braked a little earlier, anticipated somebody re-entering the track in a dangerous manner, and maybe you have to put yourself off the racing line, but if it means keeping yourself in the race in general, that's more important than arguing who was in the wrong and who was in the right. And last but certainly not least, Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
My personal favorite sim racer. Nearly all of my hours in the game have been doing time trials and racing AI so I can try to get better before racing real people, and I've loved every minute of it. I started this alongside F121 when I got my first wheel, and even with an entry wheel it felt terrific to drive. Recently I've gotten my safety rating up and have taken part in a couple of LFM races, so I'll be trying to do more of that at some point. The only issue is some tracks I still struggle with, and I'm also not really one for setting up a car and dialing it into the most optimal settings. I usually just apply the aggressive preset and use a fuel calculator. But yeah, if you were to play ACC, you'd be welcomed to one of the most gorgeous looking games in the racing genre, with the best looking tracks, the best sound design, and arguably the best driving physics. If you're after car variety, this is not the game for you, because it only does GT3 and 4 at the moment, with GT2 coming later as DLC. The beauty of this focus is that the developers Kunos were able to dial in the gameplay and make these cars feel perfect. Running VR is a little rougher than other games, according to many users, but for me personally, the game still ran well for me, looked great, and like other games in VR, it really elevated the experience and made it so much more fun. Getting into this hobby can be expensive, but it doesn't have to drain your wallet completely. There are entry options, and even in terms of the games, you don't need to start forking out hundreds for iRacing to get the best online experience. You can find some good league racing online, either through communities that run and advertise custom lobbies, or something with a little more official feeling through something like Low Fuel Motorsports, which contains a rating system and splits depending on how fast you are, and even a reporting system to help enable the cleanest and most fair environment according to set in stone rules. Sim racing definitely feels like a new way to experience games. Add the VR on top and it's a whole new hobby to lose hours in, and dollars if you're after the nice and expensive things like I am. I'd say 3/4 of my time in the seat are spent between iRacing and ACC, with the rest of my time spent in smaller sessions of Dirt Rally 2 and American Truck Simulator, and then BeamNG in even smaller doses. Despite playing F122 a lot at release, it only gets booted up when my mates want to continue on with some league racing. Overall, I wouldn't really recommend F1 specifically to others, unless you're going to be running it with a group and everyone is happy with how those games play. What I would suggest is either learn what mods are needed to race F1 in Assetto Corsa, or just race different cars in either AC itself or a completely different game, like maybe Automobilista 2. There's better feeling physics in other titles. And that's my sim racing journey summarized so far. I have a bunch of random clips that I have saved of crashes, good overtakes, just random moments that I've collected over my time. If you want to see a video of me going over some of that, more than happy to do that. I wouldn't make it any like super extended 23-minute video or something where the one thing you want to see only happens at the 15-minute mark. It'd be purely just me showing off these clips, and maybe I'll just even do a compilation of some sort. But if you want to see that, please let me know, and until the next video, have a good one.